as I was saying about MusicFit, this is how Jay and I met. Jay, the one time I can say social media worked. Who feels that way? Social media kind of yeah. For musicians, it's kind of what are we doing on there? And me, I take care of musicians. I like this phrase. I just came up with this week. I like the proudness on this. I keep them on stage and out of the headlines because MusicFit is dedicated to building the artist behind the music, because that is one thing that we have as artists that is shared across the board with athletes, is the fact that we go and, like, Jay's a great example. She came all the way from Toronto, cramped up on a train, performing 3 times a day, stopping in the middle of the night, getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. They told me this story, and it was just bonkers. And then they drove from Jasper all the way down here in the same day. And I was just like, you guys are insane. But that's the road and that's the lifestyle that we have gotten used to, which I think is crap. Anybody else agree? Anybody else a musician in this room? Yeah, that's what I thought. And there's ways to do things, and then there's ways to do things better. And we're all about sustainability. So Jay and I met because of that, and we worked together for a few years now, right? So when she posed "Can you support us on my little tour?" I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. And we locked this down, and now it's all you guys in here. So the rules of the game here today is I got basically 4 principles. Ask questions. That doesn't really apply to this unless you do have questions. We will have a room for questions if you guys want. So hold your questions, and I'll get the board up. We'll have question period for Jay. Lead with love. Okay. Grow always, in always, and then create good trouble. So that's what I mean. Like, we gotta relax because it's cool. It's chill. Who's excited? Yeah. That's enough of me. I want to get into this WildFlute. So Flute Gone Wild. What a name. She asked me. I was like, that was a mistake. That's your first mistake. You asked me for a name idea. I said Flute Gone Wild. And the theme today is wild, like the wilderness and being wild, and especially in today's day and age. There's a lack of that, I find, in many different industries, especially in the creativity stuff. So we're going to center a lot of our talk here today around the project. And to get things started here, Jay, I would just love to know more about what the WildFlute and this particular project, what it was inspired by, and why now.
Why now? It actually started a little bit with the passing of my father, and I have a lot of family here. And when I was going through his things, he's a graphic designer and an artist. I realized I was connecting and processing my grief by seeing the things that he contributed to the world as an artist, and I realized that I wanted to leave the same legacy for my children. At the same time, a friend of mine that I was playing with quite a bit in an orchestra, she is a composer. She said, go get a grant and I'll write you a piece. And I blinked, a couple long blinks, like, okay, how hard can it be? And so that was the process of the first album, Flute in the Wild. So I commissioned new pieces for flute from Canadian composers, and I asked them to write about their favorite wild space. And how that theme came about was I premiered a piece by a Canadian composer who lives in BC. She wrote it for her mother, who grew up in Georgian Bay, which is where I have a cottage, and it was a piece for flute and pre-recorded loon calls, and that became kind of a favorite. That was the centerpiece of the first Flute in the Wild album. And the other mission that I have is amplifying Canadian compositional voices, and as a performer, connecting with composers and keeping that dialogue up that I think has been lost a little bit in modern training of musicians. And so I contacted a number of my friends, and they wrote pieces, and were increasing the flute repertoire that we can share with our audiences. I was in contact with a number of international flute players who were doing global projects, and for the English-speaking project, they hadn't even considered looking at Canadian composers. And so that was kind of the linchpin for me of focusing on finding Canadian composers and working through the Canadian Music Centre for that first project. And then with the second project, Joseph Lai, who is here with us today, was the first person to reach out to say, I want to write you a piece, and so because he is here in Alberta, I have family here in Calgary, and Canada is vast. This project will go on forever. Yeah. So I decided to focus on Canadian, Western Canadian composers and Western Canadian wild spaces.
That is quite, and amazing that we've got Joseph in the room. I met the guy too. What a guy! Like I'm very excited to see the piece performed, and that's I guess that's the next step here is what does it mean when we say like I want to come back to the point of like why like the now and why in Calgary, why in the foothills, and why with just it seems like there's so many things that just lined up. Like the universe was listening, you put it out there.
Yeah.
How much of that did you allow to like just the cliche trust the process?
Yes, the creative serendipity is actually how I function. Completely. I go by instinct and respond, and then I bring my organization and project management to that to bring it to fruition. So it's the left brain meeting the right brain.
I love
and Joseph was the first one to reach out, and I thought, well, I went and reached out to other composers online, composer groups, and I went and found people, and they responded, and I collected and made friends with a bunch of new people. Sean Clark, who's originally from here, he's working in Ottawa. There's a odd connection between him and some of my flute players that were coming here, which I didn't realize until this week. And I met a lovely Leslie O'Patrell, who's a young composer. She lives in BC. So one of the things on the album is based in BC. A mentee of mine from Peterborough has moved out here to BC and is now basing his operations here as a young flutist. And he took a compositional course in Banff for Indigenous classical composers. Yeah. And so he wrote a piece for me. And so things just sort of lined up as they needed to.
Yeah. Serendipity, or we just don't see the wheels and the pulleys behind the closed doors, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this sounds like a good time to get into the music. What do you guys think? We're here for music. Well, I would love to rip into it's like rock and roll or light jazz, like we were saying with soundcheck. It's what do you have prepared for us to start things off?
Okay, so one of the other missions was to connect new compositions, and the challenge with for composers when they write a piece is to get it played even once. The other challenge is to get it played a second time,
right?
By other people. And so part of their professionalism, they need to have their music performed by people other than them. And more than once and by different performers. That really amplifies their reach, but also it's a real qualifier for grants and funding and recognition with SOCAN. So doing the business of being a musician requires some of these things, and as performers we can help composers do that. So I can't always pay composers what they deserve for the writing the piece, but what I'm doing is doing the commercial recordings that they can use as part of their reference. It's a reference piece for my colleagues to play the pieces, and then my job has been to promote these pieces, sell the or give away the parts with giving the royalties where they go, and getting people around the world to play Canadian music. And I actually managed to get one of the pieces from the first album performed by the principal players of the Pittsburgh Symphony, played one of the pieces by a Canadian composer. So we're getting around the world, and that was my mission.
Yeah.
So we have Sarah Hahn, who is the principal flute of Calgary Philharmonic, and her compatriot, who's a professor at Mount Royal and anywhere else, is Sarah McDonald. Two fantastic flute players. I've met them for the first time. They're going to be performing Joseph Lai's piece, and it's a 3-movement piece that was inspired by his favorite wild space, which is Jasper National Park. And the first movement is called Ablaze, because we were both really moved and horrified by the fires in Jasper a couple of years ago. And then Mount Edith Cavell and Maline Canyon. I understand it's Maline, not Malign. I think so. I pronounced it wrong.
Molybdenum.
Right. So these are two places that Joseph really found very special. So those are the three movements. They're about 5 minutes apiece, and it's a challenging work. The recording was with this flute player friend of mine, Sophie, is on the recording, but I'm really pleased that two native Albertans are going to be performing a work by an Albertan, and here we are expanding the repertoire.
In Alberta. Get out of town. Well, let's welcome to the stage. The Sarahs. That's the name now.
That's what we're called.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, come on up, Joseph.
Come on up, Joseph. Take your bow.
Come on,
take your
buddy.
bow, please. So Joseph wrote that piece for us. Come face the camera. We need to see you. We have people to say hi to the camera. Thank you, Joseph, for writing a piece for us and increasing the repertoire we have to share with our audience.
Most welcome.
And it was hard. These two learned it in 2 weeks. So yeah, okay, fine.
It's pretty impressive.
These are two very fine flute players, and I'm just overjoyed to actually hear them in person and meet them. So we landed in Jasper and went up to the overlook of Moline Canyon and saw all the devastation and the black charred trees. But then we also saw the new growth and the green that was coming up. So it inspired us, and so we have a video of that.
Good. you're bringing a brand new element into your playing where it's traditionally you're not going to see that. You're going to have huge orchestral pieces and there's going to be a timpani. And no, you're like, you know what? I got my own timpani. I'm just going to go boom, right here, and then it loops. And now we got a 4 on the floor over here.
Yeah, but we're used to carrying like one instrument, and now I've got like I have to understand cables and whatever. So like sometimes miss the days I just bring in my flute out, right? But it's been a lot of fun, and I'm not the only one. There's been a number of other musicians who have introduced that, and they helped introduce it to me. There's one in the States, and there's a lovely person who's up in Newfoundland who went to school with me, and so there's a few of us. But
I think it's one of the coolest things when you start to, again, we're bridging the gap here. We're bringing new world elements into old traditional styles, and then it comes up and it makes its own little hybrid, little anti-genre, which is very, very cool. And again, the theme here, it's wild. It's absolutely wild that you're doing that. Talk to me about Jasper, though. You got to Jasper, and that happened. You got out, and you're like, I'm going to do this. And that was based off of, talk to me, like, when you looked, was it the devastation? Was it the history? How did you inspire what happened, what we just watched on the screen there? How do you
well, you noticed
that?
I was kind of looking around. I was actually looking at a little bit of a mountain in front of me, all the matchsticks that were
like this stuff.
Yeah, so that's what Jasper was supposed to look like, I guess, with all the green, but it was all like these just black sticks, and it was pretty wild to me. And I remember watching the news and seeing it on fire. When we landed in Jasper, there were missing buildings, and I remember seeing the fires and then now seeing the rebuild and whatnot. So it was really about feeling the sorrow and the trauma of that, but also feeling hope. Yeah. And so that's what was coming up for me when I was playing. I don't know.
It was overwhelming. It was like we're from Toronto, so we don't see that. We don't see sites like that.
I was gonna say
we see it in postcards. I felt like we were in a postcard.
They pulled the classic Torontonian move as like the minute she got to Jasper, she's like, I'm at Jasper. She takes this like, the cliche picture of the mountain, like the first mountain we did. It's like, I'm like, tell me you're Torontonian without telling me you're from Toronto.
I've never been out west. I've never been.
I know, and isn't it majestic, right? And that's why there's so much to be had about going out and playing music. And I want to touch on the playing versus the composing, because we skirted over that a little bit. I want to revisit that. What has been the biggest difference for you in learning to compose and versus play? Like what one is there one that you prefer, or are they both, do they trade? Do you have like Tuesday and Thursday I love to play, but I like to compose on Wednesday. Wednesday is my composition day. Like what is it for you?
I still find it easier to play other people's music right now because it's there. Then the interpretation is where I've developed a lot of my skill, and I enjoy doing that. But I used improvisation as a tool for composition. I still don't write quite as complicated music as we often have to play. I don't know if that's because I don't want to have to work that hard to play the music, or I'm just really more evocative and emotional. But I think I'm getting braver. I'm trying, but I also like including the improvisation and figuring out melodies and structure. So I'm still learning that. I was rubbish at the harmony and all the technical stuff, and so I still hesitate to use the word composer for myself, but I'm working on it.
Well, let's talk about that. Do you still, as a musician, I'm going to use myself as an example. Oftentimes I'll get up off stage, or I'll be playing pan, or I'll be playing kid, and people are like, how was it? And I'm like, I have no idea.
Oh yeah, no, I don't remember how I play.
Is that the same as when you, like, on both sides of the coin? So when you're playing, or when you're, like, do you get the same kind of thing when you're a composer? I know I don't want to use that word to call you a composer, but is there a similar kind of, I would call that flow state? Because when we drop in, it's so autonomous.
Well, I'm going to tell you. So I had a structure, and a good chunk of it was improvised. And then when I got into the studio, we were playing with it and did what we needed to do. I thought I captured everything in notes, but then I realized I don't remember how my pieces go.
Oh.
So I had to listen to the recordings, and my producer added some backing tracks to it, and that was a little bit different. So I had to work on it this week. It's like, oh, how does this piece go again?
Yeah, because when you're playing it, you're gone.
Yeah,
Right.
and then I tried to make notes, but then I realized I didn't. So I didn't make enough notes. So I had to listen back, and now I can play one of them for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do that for us
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah.
Holy moly! What a privilege. This is awesome. Incredible. Thank you. Do you want to stay over there? You want to stay over there? Do you want to come over here? I can hear you. Can you guys hear her? She's talking over there. She's got to use her outdoor voice.
I do have a microphone on.
You do. You're good on there. There. Okay. Cool. Well, before I get into the next question here, I have just out of curiosity, because I was watching the slides as you were playing here, and I think it was just absolutely gorgeous. And I want to ask the big elephant in the room question: what was the coolest bit for anybody who hasn't been on like the whole I'm gonna ride a train across the country? What was the coolest bit? Do you guys have like a favorite story from that experience?
Rikki has a story that I'm very bitter about.
Okay.
The one thing I've never seen is and what this piece actually was trying to express was the far. It's called Horizon, and in the prairies, especially the grasslands, where the sky and the land meet, 5 days from where you're looking, right? It's a grand expanse, and I really wanted to see that on the train, but apparently one sees that at 4 a.m. So
You're not there.
no, but Rikki happened to be up and passed by a window and was extraordinarily moved by that and had an emotional moment. Just like, okay, that was my moment. But
You're gonna have to do it again, I guess. Eh?
I want to do it again. But we did see the incredible, sort of like these rolling waves of hills that are also part of the prairies that were really quite incredible. So seeing parts of the landscape that I've never seen and never experienced, you realize how, we know Canada is big by looking at maps, and it takes forever. I mean, it took us 2 days to get out of Ontario. It was really rather incredible. And it's really big. But then you look at the map and okay, we've gone this far and we're only on this part, and there's the rest of northern Canada. It was incomprehensible how big and beautiful it was. And so, as Rikki put it, we fell in love with Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. And now making your way all the way over here into Calgary, talking about the local support and what it means as an independent musician, no matter what caliber, we all fight the same fight. What does it mean to you to come to Calgary? We've already touched a little bit about this, but with local musicians being local, really focusing in on the local wild, like getting into the territory, like we're looking at it right now. What does that mean to you on the greater picture? You got to ride all the way from where you're based across the country to be here, to be with some local support, and I'm sure you host the same thing when we go out there, right? So it's like, what does that mean to you if you had it to sum it up in music even?
Connection. Just connecting with my fellow musicians, with my family, feeling more connected to, I guess, there's no one unifying identity, and there's everybody's got different experiences and opinions, but the connecting thread of living in such a incredible country is really how I felt. So connected to people just like me, and feeling like I have friends and family here, and we're all part of this sort of one ecosystem of creativity.
Yeah. If I'm able to, I can share my experience because I would like to first give you an opportunity to share your side of the coin on how we met, so we can give them a little bit more context, not just a Mike story. How did this happen? Like, how did this happen? How are you here? How are that? How did we meet in your story?
Okay, I suddenly found myself being a front person for a band, and I had never done that. We're used to playing in an orchestra. We're like, we're soloists, but we have a little bit. We're a hive mind of an orchestra, and that was mostly my life, doing some recitals, but not really being out there and engaging in an audience. And that was a new skill for me. And I also had 2 children and wasn't really in good shape. And so you presented online with, I was looking for somebody to help me be present and take up space and be comfortable taking up space. And also I wanted to get in shape and fit and whatever. And so you had that brand, but then what you hit me with was a psychological repair first. And that was probably the most valuable thing. And that cascaded into the rest of it falling in place.
It's the confidence piece, right? Because you wouldn't be here. That's what I wanted to get to, is like you wouldn't be here. And what happened when you guys got into town was similar to what you explained about Jasper. You had, here's the mountains. And then a couple hours later, we're meeting for the first time. And then a couple hours later after that, guys, we're out in the sticks playing music together, never having even met. What is the significance of music as a form of like language to you, and how do we as artists, and you specifically, come into a situation where I felt like we had never met really in person. Rikki and I, we just met. It was like, and of course we were how does this happen? Like your experience, what is music as language?
For me, it starts with self-trust. Trusting that I have something to say, that I know how my instrument works, I know how my body works, and I can marshal all of these things together, and connecting emotionally to what I'm experiencing and trusting that, and trusting the training and just letting go. And that's what the improvisation um, gave me, was that internal confidence and knowledge that I had something to say. That's something that's not really encouraged in that they're all nodding going, I know.
Yes,
like the
right?
traditional conservatory training doesn't really encourage that. And so that's another soapbox I have found myself stepping on. I've got so many. But encouraging, expanding the idea of what it means to train as a musician, and breaking down genre barriers, breaking down the idea that conservatory training is this high fluting thing, and learning by ear and other methods of learning is not as good. I think it all brings things,
Of course.
together.
And now we got the opportunity to go play, like
Yeah.
I said, out in the sticks. And I think
We
that's
got
the
video.
plan. We got some we have documented evidence of this, so you're not just hearing it from me
Leighton
and
one.
from Jay. If we
Leighton
want
one.
to roll the tape. I've always wanted to say that. I got to do it. That was cool. It was like my Ron McClain moment. Let's roll the tape. There we go. Oh yes, we should give context. Leighton, center of
Right. Okay. So Leighton Art Center, we descended upon them rather unexpectedly. It was a suggestion that was found by Joseph's partner Shannon, and said, "Oh, this is a beautiful spot," and it really is. And it was overlooking the foothills and had the mountains in the background. And so the piece I was answering for this one was written by Sean Clark, who wrote 2 pieces for 2 flutes and percussion. I couldn't bring my percussionist. There was a lot of equipment and lack of grants, answering that. But he wrote 2 pieces called 2 Sunrises in the Foothills. And this suggestion was perfect because it was exactly the way I imagined the piece that we were playing for him. It's very ethereal, some electronic mallets and 2 flutes and a bunch of different flutes that we were switching around in. And so I wanted to reflect that piece. And there were 2 of those. And so we did 2 different locations in Leighton. This is the first one.
gotta confess something. That's what I was just on my phone for. If anybody else like, what's he doing? Okay. What I was playing on the handpan there, I was like, why do I have this song in my head? It's a tragically hip song. I'm like, and it's been in my head since we met, and I was like, why is that song in my head? It's because that's what I was. This is the first time I really got to see that whole thing. I'm like, oh, that's why I was playing the tragically hip on the handpan, guys.
Thank you for that. Mike, so hard done by.
Oh, nice.
You knew it, right? There's a man. See? There you go. We're gonna put that on the break for sure, because I'm like, you guys, I hear it. That's on the handpan. I have a new cover.
Okay.
There. We'll play that next time.
Okay.
We'll play Tragically Hip on the pan.
Nice.
Right? Jay's like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? I understand. I want to hear some more Jay.
Okay, so actually, one of the pieces on the album is actually by R. Murray Schafer.
Okay.
And the reason I chose that piece is it's never been recorded. I've never heard it. It was written for my teacher's teacher, Bob Aiken, who's a major flute soloist. He was one of the first Canadian flute soloists to go around the world and to live and promote his life as a soloist as opposed to freelancing as an orchestral player. And his his main focus was contemporary music. So he amplified flute contemporary music. He wrote a number of pieces, one called Icicle that we all play. And he was one of the teachers of my teacher, Doug Stewart, who was principal flute of Canadian Opera Company. And they all live in Toronto. So I had the privilege of meeting him. I interviewed him for a magazine. That interview is online. And this piece was written by R. Murray Schafer, another major Canadian composer, for Bob Aiken. The thing about Schafer and how he fits in, and he's just passed a few years ago, how he fits into my wild themes, that he was a huge fan and proponent of playing in wild spaces on barges in the middle of Georgian Bay. They had pieces where people were playing, mimicking wolf song, and he would bring all kinds of different musicians together to do exactly this, improvise or express wild spaces. And he was a huge environmentalist as well. So that's how he fits in. And no one has recorded this piece. So I thought, hey, let's do it.
Why not?
So I've got, again, Sarah Hahn, who's a local player, to come and play this with me.
Hooray. All right. this is a huge reflection of the amount of local support and what it takes to, the old saying is the village, right? It takes a village. How much of you in your next 10, 15, 20 years of playing is focused on what we know and love as collaboration?
I think it's going to be 100%.
Yeah, right?
Collaboration. I mean, collaboration has always been part of music, especially as an ensemble player. It's something we learn to do really well. I think pianists and guitarists tend to not do that so much. They have to take classes. And so I'm I have that advantage of being like a single line player. We have to find other people to play with, although the looper kind of changes some of that. It's kind of fun.
Got a band in there, band in the box right there.
But it's still, I find I play better. I have more ideas when I am fed through other people's creativity.
Yeah.
I'm also an editor and a designer, and I always do better when I have clay to work with rather than starting the clay myself. And that's just the way I work. And so I do much better when I have other people to play with.
Talk to me about this final piece that you're going to be playing here today.
Been debating which one to do, but I think I'm going to do one from the first album that is always a crowd pleaser. But people like hearing the backing track that goes with it. It's the first track on Flute in the Wild 1, and it's Calling.
going for Jaye Marsh, the WildFlute. Yeah. So we don't want to go rock and roll. It's more like it's the snaps, right, Ben?
Right.
Snaps. Let's go like that. There we are.
Thank you so much for coming. And we do have some more ways to help. I've got some merchandise from my band. I painted the hand-painted version of our logo. I've got some T-shirts. If anybody buys pieces already on Bandcamp, the rest of the album will be released on Bandcamp and YouTube. We encourage you to investigate Bandcamp. You can create your own playlist and you can support your favorite artists that way. You'll find everything that you have on your Spotify playlist on Bandcamp. But then you can have a direct relationship with your favorite bands. And that's actually something we've never had. So the old days with the music industry being in charge, it's actually some good stuff going on with the internet and Bandcamp and being able to produce our own and release our own music. You've got your own home studios. So it's a brand new day. We just need to cut out the middlemen because they're always making money off artists. And so time to support the artists directly.
Heck yeah. There we go.
Thank you for coming.
A room full of artists that's like, yeah.